Happy Halloween, guys. Welcome to my final Halloween review of the year. For this one, I decided to dress up as Charlie Chaplin's The Tramp. Just to warn you, this review will have spoilers, and I think from now on, as a rule of thumb, any movie made this year or last year will be spoiler-free unless it's something everyone's seen, like Avengers Endgame. And anything released before that will have spoilers unless it's incredibly underrated. Alright, on to the review. Psycho is directed by Alfred Hitchcock. It stars Janet Leigh as Marion Crane, a secretary who steals $40,000 from her employer's client and goes on the lam. When she is overcome from exhaustion and can't see the road due to a thunderstorm, she stops at the secluded Bates Motel. Psycho might be one of my favorite movies of all time because it made me look at films more deeply and inspired me to make movies of my own. I love Psycho's twist, and the very first time I watched Psycho, when Lila Crane turns around the chair and sees Norma Bates' skeleton, and Norman Bates bursts through the door dressed as his mother, my jaw was practically on the floor. It totally caught me off guard, and I, to this day, think it's one of the best movie twists ever. If Norman had nothing wrong with him and was the killer, it would be disappointing. But because he thought he was his mother, the twist worked, and that's what makes this an Alfred Hitchcock film. He's the only person who would take an ordinary twist and add something a bit more disturbing into the mix in order to make it feel more real, and I really appreciate that aspect of the film. My favorite part about Psycho is Norman's relationship with his mother. It feels like he's kept on a leash. When he eats dinner with Marion, he talks about how everyone has a private trap that they can't escape, and his private trap is his mother. It feels more disturbing later after the twist because it means that Norman is keeping himself in his own private trap. Other things Norman says in this scene makes his relationship with his mother even more twisted. He says, "A boy's best friend is his mother," which has become the most famous line in the film, but he also talks about how he feels his mother is suffocating him, and he talks very bad things about his mother. And then, going back to how he thinks positively of her, he still treats her extremely well and tries as hard as he can to keep her out of a mental home, even getting insulted when Marion suggests it. When it comes to Psycho, you might think the tensest scene is the iconic shower scene, yet in my opinion, the tensest scene is when Marion goes inside to buy a new car after a run-in with the police officer, and while the salesman goes inside to get the car's paper, the police officer pulls over across the street and eventually starts inching closer to her. Luckily, she drives away just in time, but it took me a minute to realize my teeth were so tightly clenched together during that scene. I wanted to just yell at the screen, "Get going! Get the pink slip!" It was so tense, especially since she and the police officer interacted before and he thought she was acting suspicious. I actually watched both the uncut version and the TV version, and the uncut version is the original theatrical release, and the TV version was more censored and is the commonly seen one that they show in present-day screenings and on TV. When you see the uncut version, it seems like there's nothing much, just a few extra seconds here and there, but in case you haven't seen them, 2 of the 3 differences are just a few seconds stabbing Arbogast and an extra second of Norman washing blood off his hands. But there's one difference that stands out. Norman spying on Marion through the peephole longer. In the TV version, Norman watches Marion take off her shirt and put a robe on, but in the uncut version, Norman watches Marion take off her shirt, her bra, and put a robe on. And this makes the scene way more disturbing because it feels more intrusive, especially since there are 2 other scenes in the movie where Marion is in her bra. So it feels like Norman isn't doing anything wrong, even if he is, because we've seen it before. But because in this scene she's actually getting naked, it feels way more disturbing because we haven't seen it before, and so it stands out as a reason to dislike Norman, and this feels way more perverted. So I personally like the uncut version better because of what it brings to the disturbing vibe. Now, the part where Psycho falls a bit flat is in the last scene where, after arresting Norman, a psychiatrist explains the twist to us. I know Knives Out did this same problem with its twist, but in Psycho, at least they put it into action before explaining the twist. He did something like this in Vertigo, and in the very first episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, he says towards the beginning, "I shall not act in these stories, but I will only make appearances, something in the nature of accessory, before and after the fact, to give the title to those of you who can't read, and to tidy up afterwards for those of you who didn't understand the ending." It seems Hitchcock has trouble trusting his audience enough to understand the ending, but I'm not going to let this affect the overall grade I'm giving to this film, and here's why. He isn't looking down on us. He's doing it because he loves his films so much that he wants to make them as understandable and enjoyable as possible. And some of the explaining does help, because all we know is that Norman Bates has been dressing up as his mother and has been killing people. So some of the explaining actually clears a lot of things up. Of course, I am going to give Psycho an A+. I think Psycho kind of casts a shadow on Hitchcock's other equally impressive films. So if you like Psycho, may I recommend some of his other films to you? The Birds, Rear Window, Rope, North by Northwest, Vertigo. All of these are exquisite Hitchcock films. My favorite of these is Vertigo, so I suggest you check that out first. Thanks again for watching my video, and thanks for checking out my Halloween videos. Stay safe and watch good movies. Happy Halloween!